The hum of the lecture hall usually lulled Alex Thorne into a half-sleep. Not today. Professor Xylo's 4 eyes, normally a soothing lavender, pulsed with an agitated violet. The Cathar professor, known for his calm and precise lectures, was practically vibrating. His 3 slender fingers tapped a complex equation onto the holoscreen. "This, class," Xylo's voice resonated, usually smooth as polished crystal, now held a sharp edge, "is the great unsolved problem of our galaxy, the void static." A ripple went through the room, a murmur of discomfort. Alex felt a cold tingle along his spine. He knew the void static. Everyone did. It was the reason Earth, his home, was on the fringe, its trade routes twisting around the invisible barriers. It had been holding back galactic expansion for 1,000 years. Every major species, every brilliant mind had tried to crack it. They called it unsolvable. The equation on the screen was a twisted knot of advanced physics. Energy signatures, spatial distortions, temporal anomalies. It looked like a broken heart drawn by a mad artist. Alex leaned forward, a strange itch starting behind his eyes. He wasn't a physics major. He was here for general studies, trying to understand the galactic community. But the pattern on the screen, it looked familiar. Not from a textbook, from something else. Professor Xylo's antennae, usually held high in a dignified sweep, twitched low, almost touching the lectern. "We have exhausted every known branch of physics, every theoretical model. It resists all analysis. It makes entire sectors of space impassable. It has choked trade, isolated systems, and led to countless lost vessels." He paused, his vocalizers making a soft, frustrated click. "It is a monument to our collective intellectual limits." Alex felt a sudden warmth in his chest. It wasn't genius. It was just perspective. He saw a solution not in the numbers but in the shapes. He saw a pattern, like a knot he used to untangle in old ropes on his family's fishing boat. He remembered his dad saying, "Sometimes the answer isn't in pulling harder, son. It's in knowing which loop to loosen." The knot on the screen was a 3-dimensional fractal, but with a specific repeating error. A misaligned node, a harmonic dissonance. It was so simple. Alex raised his hand. The professor, mid-sigh, blinked his 4 eyes slowly, focusing on the small human. "Yes, human student Thorne." Xylo's voice was flat, tired. He had not expected a human, especially one in a basic introductory class, to have anything meaningful to add to this, the most profound of galactic mysteries. Alex felt the weight of every alien gaze in the room. Cathar, Xyler, even a few of the small, multi-limbed Sol Arbor from the Tree Cities. They looked at him with polite, distant curiosity. He cleared his throat. "Professor, with respect, I think the problem isn't with the equation itself." He pointed to the holoscreen, a casual, almost thoughtless gesture. "It's with the assumption it's based on." A ripple of whispers, a few low, clicking sounds from the Cathar. Xylo's antennae went rigid. "Elaborate, human student. Such a bold claim requires more than intuition." Alex felt the adrenaline spike. He took a deep breath. "The equation assumes a fixed point of origin for the static. A single, singular source of interference. But what if it's not a source? What if it's a reaction, a harmonic feedback loop?" He walked to the holoscreen, ignoring the incredulous stares. His hand trembled slightly as he tapped a specific nexus point on the complex diagram. "See this repeating anomaly? We've been trying to counteract it, to cancel it out. But what if it's not an external force pushing in? What if it's an internal pressure trying to escape?" He looked at the professor, his brown eyes wide with conviction. "It's like trying to fix a leak by patching the wall, but the leak isn't coming from outside. It's coming from a pipe bursting inside the wall." He tapped another point. "This repeating signature, it's a self-correcting error, not a destructive one." A few students shifted in their seats, their multi-jointed fingers hovering over data logs. Xylo's 4 eyes narrowed, a mix of disbelief and a flicker of something else, something like dawning horror. "Explain this, internal pressure human student Thorne." His voice was a low rumble now. Alex swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. He wasn't sure how to put it into scientific terms. He thought of his grandfather's old radio, full of static. "It's like a hum, a resonance. A species, a planet, or even a star system emits a unique energy signature, right? Like a song." He gestured broadly. "What if, over the millennia with all the travel, the energy waves from countless species and countless hyperspace jumps have created a kind of echo chamber? A galactic feedback loop. His words flowed faster now, ideas connecting. The void static isn't an alien phenomenon, it's us. It's the galaxy itself, resonant with too many overlapping frequencies, and it's trying to harmonize. It's like a guitar string that's been plucked too many times, and it's buzzing, trying to find its quiet center. Professor Xylo's antennae drooped, then shot up. His four eyes focused on the screen, then on Alex, then back to the screen. A low, guttural growl escaped his vocalizers. Not anger, but a sound of profound intellectual shock. He started tapping furiously at the display, inputting Alex's intuition into the complex mathematical model. The room was silent. A single data entry based on Alex's theory changed the entire structure of the visual representation on the holoscreen. The chaotic knot of energy began to unravel. The harsh, jagged lines softened. The chaotic pulsing pattern began to resolve itself into a graceful, symmetrical wave. It wasn't gone, not yet. But the underlying structure, the knot, had yielded. A low gasp went through the alien students. Xylo stumbled back from the lectern, almost tripping over his own long, segmented leg. His four eyes were wide, the lavender color almost gone, replaced by a deep, pulsing indigo. His vocalizers clicked erratically. Impossible. It is a conceptual shift, a fundamental reevaluation of hyperspatial mechanics. It is, he trailed off, looking at Alex, then at the solved, elegant equation on the screen. A child's solution, so simple, so human. His voice was a bare whisper. He looked like he had seen a ghost, or perhaps had his entire universe turned inside out. The other students began murmuring louder, a frantic babble of alien tongues. Some pointed at Alex. Some pointed at the screen. One of the Sol Arbor students, Kale, Alex's roommate, a small being with glistening, moss-covered limbs, slowly unfurled a new tendril, a sign of extreme surprise for their species. Kale's three bulbous eyes, usually a calm emerald, were now wide and darting. Xylo stumbled to the comm panel on his desk, his movements jerky. His fingers, usually so precise, fumbled with the controls. He looked at Alex with an expression that combined awe, fear, and a terrifying professional humiliation. "Human student Thorne," he gasped, his voice tight. "What have you done?" Alex felt a strange mix of triumph and unease. He had just answered a 1,000-year-old question. He thought it would feel good. Instead, he felt a crushing weight. He had just broken something. He just didn't know what yet. He heard Professor Xylo's voice, now amplified across the holoscreen, a frantic call into the academic network. "This is Professor Xylo of the Galactic Theoretical Institute. I require immediate access to High Speaker Vreel and the Grand Academics Council. There has been an unforeseen development, a profound conceptual breakthrough by a human." The last word was spoken with a mix of shock and profound dread. The sounds of the academy were usually a soothing thrum. The gentle hum of repulsor lifts, the soft clicks of alien shoes on polished floors, the low murmur of countless languages. Now the main quad was a riot of noise and agitated movement. Students from every species rushed about, their sensory organs focused on the news feeds flickering on every public holoscreen. The void static, solved by a human. Alex sat on a low bench near a fountain that bubbled with iridescent liquid, its scent faintly metallic. He watched the chaos around him. Kale, his roommate, was perched nervously on the back of the bench, its tendrils twitching. "Alex," Kale chirped, its voice a rapid series of clicks and whistles. "The entire academic world is buzzing. No, the entire galaxy is buzzing. You are like a legend already. A living legend." Alex rubbed his temples. "I just saw a pattern, Kale. It wasn't magic." Kale tilted its three eyes. "The patterns you humans see are different, unstructured, chaotic. We, the Sol Arbor, are based on organic fractal growth. We understand patterns, but yours, they are not logical in the way our minds process." A stern-looking Cathar, a security officer with 4 extra-long antennae, approached them. "Human student Alex Thorne," he rumbled. Alex nodded. "High Speaker Vreel requests your immediate presence." Alex stood up. Kale made a low, anxious chittering sound. "Be careful, Alex. High Speaker Vreel is traditional. Very traditional." Alex followed the officer. The path took him through several quiet, elegant corridors, past offices with glowing data slates, until they reached a set of massive, ornate doors. They swung open silently. The air inside was cool, smelling faintly of ozone and something akin to old parchment. The room was circular, with a raised platform in the center. Around it, tiered seating held a dozen figures, each representing a major species on the Galactic Council. High Speaker Vreel, a Xyler, dominated the center. His massive, rocky form settled deep into a cushioned chair. His eyes, like chips of obsidian, were fixed on Alex. "Human Alex Thorne," Vreel's voice boomed, deep and resonant. "You stand accused of disrupting galactic stability. Potentially." Alex blinked. "Disrupting stability? I solved the void static." High Speaker Vreel slowly rose, a process that took several seconds given his immense size. "Indeed, and in doing so you have cast doubt upon millennia of established scientific principle. You have challenged the very foundation of galactic understanding. And perhaps most concerningly, you have created an unprecedented economic and political tremor." He gestured to a large holoscreen that flickered above them, showing chaotic market data, flashing red indicators, and news reports in countless languages, all centered around humanity and void static solved. Trade routes that took centuries to establish are now obsolete. Entire industries, built around navigating or mitigating the static, face ruin. Species that benefited from their protected sectors are now exposed. "This is not a solution, human. This is chaos." Professor Xylo, who was also present, stood beside Vreel, looking much smaller and more agitated than usual. "High Speaker, with all due respect, the mathematical proof is sound. Human Thorne's insight, though unorthodox, is undeniably correct. The void static is a harmonic resonance, a galactic feedback loop, not an external force." Vreel turned his massive head slowly to Xylo. "And you, Professor, endorse this chaotic solution. A solution from a species barely a century out of their own star system. A species whose history is one of constant internal conflict and unpredictable behavior." Xylo's antennae quivered. "Truth, High Speaker, is not beholden to origin. It is truth." Vreel let out a low rumble that vibrated through the floor. "Perhaps, but the implementation of this truth, that is where the danger lies." He turned back to Alex. "Human Alex Thorne, your solution must be contained. Controlled. We cannot allow this knowledge to spread unchecked." Alex felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Contained? It's a scientific principle. It's like trying to contain gravity once you understand it." Vreel's obsidian eyes stared. "It is a power, and power, human, must be wielded carefully, especially by those new to the galactic stage." A thought flashed through Alex's mind. They weren't just afraid of the solution. They were afraid of him, of humanity. He realized then that the biggest problem wasn't the void static itself, but what it meant for the galactic order and how a human being had shattered it. "What do you propose, High Speaker?" Alex asked, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "We propose," Vreel said, his voice dropping to a low, ominous tone, "that humanity, and specifically you, Human Thorne, be put under observation, and the full implementation of this solution will be delayed indefinitely, while we assess the true implications." Alex's mind raced. Delay, indefinitely, that was just a polite way of saying never. They wanted to bury it. They wanted to maintain the status quo. He thought of Earth, still struggling with limited FTL routes, still isolated from the richer, older civilizations. This solution could change everything for his home world. He had a sudden flash of memory. His younger sister, Maya, looking at old star maps, dreaming of distant worlds. This wasn't just about abstract physics anymore. It was about opening the galaxy for everyone. He looked at Professor Xylo, who gave him a subtle, almost imperceptible nod, a silent message. "Do not yield." Alex took a deep breath. "High Speaker Vreel, if the solution is correct, it will become obvious. The universe does not wait for political convenience." He paused, letting the silence hang. "If you delay, others will find it. Someone else will see the same pattern. It's not a secret formula. It's a fundamental truth." Vreel's eyes narrowed. "Are you threatening the Council, human?" Alex met his gaze. "No, High Speaker, I am stating a scientific fact. Truth once seen cannot be unseen." The air in the council chamber thickened with unspoken tension. The other council members, their faces impassive, exchanged silent glances. Alex felt a surge of resolve. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was a representative, a point of light. The next few days were a blur of meetings, interrogations, and intense scrutiny. Alex was moved from his simple academy dorm to a more secure, isolated suite. Professor Xylo, despite his initial panic, became Alex's reluctant advocate. He would bring him complex data pads, discussing the nuances of the void static solution. "Your theory of harmonic feedback loops, it is elegant," Xylo admitted one evening, his 4 eyes gleaming with intellectual curiosity. "But the implications are vast. We are talking about retuning the very fabric of subspace." Alex was sketching in a small notebook, not equations, but simple diagrams of fluid dynamics. "It's like draining a pond. You don't just scoop out the water. You find the low point and you open a channel." Xylo watched him, fascinated. "Your human analogies are surprisingly effective." Alex's old roommate, Kale, managed to visit him occasionally. Kale, a saw arbor, communicated mostly through rapid changes in its tendril growth and the scent it emitted. Today, Kale smelled like freshly watered soil, a sign of deep concern. "The news channels are full of you, Alex," Kale clicked, its tendrils vibrating gently. "The Xyler claim you are a danger. The Cathar are divided. The Saw Arbor are fascinated. We have never seen such a disruptive intellectual breakthrough from a new species." Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just wanted to pass my general studies class." Kale's tendrils drooped. "Now you are a galaxy changer." Alex knew the Council's delay tactic was a slow strangulation. They wanted to understand his method, replicate it without him, and then implement it under their own terms. Or worse, bury it. He had a sudden idea. A risky one. One that came from his own human experience of bureaucracy and getting things done. He needed to make the solution impossible to ignore. He needed to prove it in a way that defied the Council's control. "Kale," Alex said, a glint in his eye, "do you remember that old, derelict jump gate near the Academy? The one no one uses because it leads into a void static zone." Kale's tendrils went rigid. "The Sector 7 gate, it is condemned, Alex, dangerous." Alex nodded. "Exactly. He needed to enlist help." His first thought was Ambassador Lena Petrova, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. She was sharp, calm, and knew how to navigate political currents. He managed to get a secure channel to her, pretending it was a general welfare check. "Ambassador," Alex said, keeping his voice low, "they're trying to table the void static solution, indefinitely." Lena's voice was tight with controlled frustration. "I know, Alex, High Speaker Vreel has been very persuasive. He's playing on fears of economic collapse, species rivalries. He's painting humanity as a reckless, destabilizing force." Alex nodded. "I have an idea to force their hand, but I need your help. It's risky." He laid out his plan. A public live demonstration of the solution using the condemned jump gate, a direct challenge. Lena was silent for a long moment. "Alex, that's incredibly dangerous. You could be exiled, or worse. And it could make humanity look like arrogant, reckless children." Alex heard the concern in her voice, but also a flicker of something else. "Hope. Or," Alex said, "it could prove that humanity is willing to take risks for progress. That we don't just talk about solutions, we prove them." A few days later, Alex found himself standing in the abandoned observation deck, overlooking Jumpgate Sector 7. The gate was a colossal ring, dark and silent, covered in grime and flickering warning lights. The air here was cold, smelling faintly of ancient dust and the deep vacuum of space. Professor Xylo stood beside him, his 4 eyes wide, his antennae twitching with a mix of terror and grudging admiration. "This is madness, human thorn," Xylo whispered, his voice a low hiss. "High Speaker Vreel will have you disassembled." Alex adjusted the small, modified energy modulator Kale had helped him procure from the Academy's abandoned labs. It was cobbled together from scavenged parts, crude but functional. Kale, a bundle of quivering tendrils, was already operating a small console, tapping out a sequence of code to reactivate the gate's auxiliary systems. "We need to make this impossible to ignore, Professor," Alex replied, checking the modulator's readings. "If they can bury it quietly, they will. This way, they can't." Ambassador Lena Petrova arrived then, flanked by a small, heavily armed human security detail. She looked grim but determined. "Alex, are you absolutely sure about this?" she asked, her voice low. Alex looked at the dead jump gate. Yes, this isn't just about a scientific solution. It's about showing them who we are. We fix things. We don't just accept problems. We break them open and find the answers. Lena nodded, a flicker of pride in her eyes. Very well. I've leaked the intention of a private scientific demonstration to a few trusted, neutral news outlets. Enough to get attention, but not enough to trigger a full lockdown yet. Her comm unit chirped. Council alert. High speaker Vreel is en route. He suspects something. Alex quickly moved to the center of the observation deck. Kale, activate the gate's low-power field. Professor Xylo, are the calculations for the harmonic frequency exact? Xylo, though clearly terrified, nodded, his multiple limbs moving with practiced precision over a separate console. Precise to the subatomic level, human thorn, but the energy required to project it across a full jump gate array is immense. We might overload the system. Alex grinned. That's the point. We need to create a ripple. A clear signal. He held up the modulator, a crude device compared to alien tech, but it was his. It contained the unique human insight. All right, he said, taking a deep breath. Let's open up the galaxy. He pressed a switch on the modulator. A high-pitched whine filled the observation deck. The jump gate, a kilometer in diameter, began to hum, a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated through the floor. Small, faint arcs of energy flickered across its ancient frame. Then, a sudden, booming voice echoed through the deck's speakers. Human Alex Thorne, halt this recklessness immediately. High speaker Vreel had arrived, his massive form filling the main entrance, followed by a phalanx of Xyler security. His obsidian eyes blazed with fury. This is an unauthorized use of council property. You will be arrested. Alex ignored him. He focused on the jump gate. He needed to synchronize his modulator with the gate's faint energy field. This was the moment. He could feel the void static, a distant, oppressive pressure just beyond the gate. It was like a thick curtain suffocating space. He pushed the modulator's power output to its maximum. The device whined louder, straining. Small sparks flew from its casing. A low-frequency hum began to build in the observation deck, a vibrating tone that filled his bones. This was the counter-frequency, the harmonic key to unlock the static. The hum intensified. The jump gate's flickering arcs became brighter, steadier. The ancient metal structure began to glow with a faint, shimmering light. Alex could feel the energy building, a pressure in the air, a tingling on his skin. He saw Professor Xylo's 4 eyes wide with a mix of terror and intellectual thrill. Kale was a quivering ball of tendrils, but its small limbs still furiously worked the console, keeping the gate's power flow stable. High speaker Vreel bellowed again, "Seize him! Stop this madness!" But Alex's human security detail, led by a stoic Earth Marine, drew their energy rifles, forming a protective barrier. They weren't going to let anyone stop him. A sudden, sharp crack echoed through the chamber like a whip lashing through the air. It wasn't an explosion. It was the sound of the void static itself, reacting. The oppressive pressure in the room, the distant, suffocating feeling, suddenly lifted. It was like a veil had been torn away. Through the jump gate's shimmering field, the view of distant space, normally hazy and distorted by the static, cleared. Stars, once blurred and indistinct, now shone with crisp, sharp points of light. A distant nebula, usually a barely visible smudge, flared into vibrant colors of blues and purples. It was as if the universe itself had just taken a deep, clear breath. A stunned silence fell over the observation deck. High speaker Vreel's booming voice died in his throat. His massive frame froze. His obsidian eyes, usually so fierce, were wide with disbelief, staring at the now clear vista beyond the gate. Professor Xylo slowly raised one of his slender hands, pointing a trembling finger at the gate. It is open. The static, it is gone. For a moment, it is clear. Kale, Alex's roommate, let out a rapid series of clicks, a sound of pure wonder. Its tendrils unfurled completely, reaching for the newly opened space. Alex felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. The modulator sputtered, its casing glowing hot, its internal circuits failing. He had pushed it too hard. But it had worked. He had done it. The silence broke into a cacophony of shouts, not just from the Xyler security, but from Lena's team, from Xylo, from Kale, and from the comm units that suddenly chirped with frantic reports. News channels, alerted by Lena, were picking up the live feed from the gate, beaming the impossible vista across the galaxy. The clear space. The void static temporarily gone. It was undeniable. Alex looked at High Speaker Vreel. The Xyler Council member's face was a mask of conflicting emotions. Disbelief, anger, but also a dawning comprehension of the monumental shift that had just occurred. He had seen it with his own eyes. The galaxy had seen it. The problem had been solved by a human, and it had been done in front of everyone. The aftermath was pandemonium. The galactic news networks exploded. Hollow billboards across 1,000 worlds displayed the image of the clear jump gate. Humanity, once a peripheral curiosity, was now the center of every conversation. Alex was no longer just a student. He was the void breaker, the human key, the earth shaker. He was also under house arrest, though a very comfortable one, at the highest levels of the Galactic Council's secure facilities. His reckless demonstration had indeed forced their hand. High Speaker Vreel was furious, but also cornered. The evidence was irrefutable. Professor Xylo became Alex's constant companion, delving deeper into the nuances of the harmonic feedback loop theory. "Your intuition, human thorn," Xylo said, his 4 eyes gleaming with intellectual fervor. "It is not just a gift. It is a new way of thinking. Our species, the Cathar, we are bound by logic, by established principles. We build upon what is known. You jump to the unknown, you see the gaps." Alex, tired of the constant attention, just wanted a quiet corner. "It's just common sense, Professor. If something's not working, try something different." Ambassador Lena Petrova was now working almost around the clock. "Alex," she said during a secure video call, her face etched with fatigue but her eyes bright, "this has changed everything. The Xyler are scrambling. The Cathar are cautiously optimistic. The Solarbor are calling you a prophet of unification. Every species wants to understand this human intuition. They want to know what else humanity can do." Alex watched a news report on the holoscreen. A Xyler economist was predicting the collapse of the Hyperroot guilds, vast organizations that had profited for centuries from the complex, circuitous routes around the static. Another species, the Xylos, who had invested heavily in static-resistant vessels, were facing financial ruin. The political ramifications were just beginning. A new subplot emerged: the static survivors. Species that had, over 1,000 years, adapted to or even thrived in the isolation caused by the static. Some had developed unique ecosystems, others had established protected trade monopolies. They were now furious. They saw Alex's solution not as progress, but as an invasion. High Speaker Vreel, despite his anger at Alex, found himself in a precarious position. He had to lead the council through this unprecedented shift. He was forced to acknowledge the solution, but he tried to frame it carefully. "The human contribution is noted," he announced in a public address, his voice booming but slightly strained. "And the council will now embark on a structured, multi-species project to safely implement the void static solution." His words were carefully chosen. He was trying to take control of the narrative, to bring the chaotic human act under the council's banner. But the galaxy had seen the truth. They had seen the clear space. The demand for the solution was overwhelming. Trade routes were already being redrawn on rudimentary maps based on Alex's public demonstration. The information was spreading, decentralized, beyond the council's immediate control. This was the human way. Once knowledge was out, it couldn't be put back in its box. Alex, now a reluctant celebrity, found himself constantly observed. His meals were monitored, his conversations recorded. He missed the simple life on Earth, fishing with his dad, hearing Maya's laughter. He felt a deep loneliness. Kale, his faithful roommate, noticed. Kale would bring him small, intricate carvings from its home tree, each one a tiny masterpiece of woven tendrils, silent offerings of comfort. Professor Xylo began to involve Alex in more formal discussions with other senior Cathar academics. These sessions were excruciating. Alex would try to explain his intuitive leaps in simple terms, while the Cathar would try to reduce it to a logical progression, searching for the pre-existing theorems that must have guided him. "But human thorn," a particularly stern Cathar scholar with 12 eyes asked, "at the point of conceptualization, what was the precise logical step that led you from the known variables to the unknown harmonic?" Alex just shrugged. "I just saw it like a picture in my head, like the way water flows around a rock. It just made sense." The Cathar scholars looked at each other, baffled. This was not how science was done. This was art instinct. It challenged their very understanding of intellectual progress. This struggle to explain his human intuition became a central part of Alex's arc. He wasn't just solving a problem. He was inadvertently forcing the galaxy to reconsider how it understood knowledge and discovery. He began to realize that his strength wasn't just in his brain, but in his very nature as a human. The ability to see things differently, to connect unrelated concepts, to simplify the complex. High Speaker Vril, meanwhile, faced increasing pressure. The species who demanded the void static solution were growing louder. The static survivors were sending envoys, threatening economic reprisals. His authority was being chipped away. He knew he had to act. He called a special session of the council with Alex and Lena Petrova in attendance. The council chamber was packed. The air was thick with tension. Vril, his rocky form looking heavier than usual, rose. The council acknowledges the pressing need to address the void static. We also acknowledge the unique contribution of human Alex Thorne. He hesitated, then continued. Therefore, we propose a multi-species, cross-disciplinary project led by Professor Xylo with human Alex Thorne as a key consultant to develop and implement the full void static solution. Alex felt a small spark of victory. They were accepting it, but there was a catch. Vril continued. However, due to the unforeseen complexities, human Thorne will remain under council's supervision. His knowledge will be shared only through controlled channels, ensuring galactic stability. Lena Petrova, sitting beside Alex, leaned in. They're trying to control the spread of the solution and control you, to make sure humanity doesn't get *2* much power too quickly. Alex understood. They still feared humanity, feared their unpredictability, their rapid ascension. He needed to find a way to ensure the solution genuinely benefited everyone, not just those approved by the council. He had to ensure it was truly open *. He subtly met Professor Xylo's gaze. Xylo gave an almost imperceptible nod, a secret understanding. Xylo, the logical Cathar, was starting to learn the human way of navigating alien politics. Subversion through cooperation. The project began. It was massive, involving engineers, physicists, and economists from dozens of species. Alex was nominally a key consultant, but in reality he was still a prisoner, albeit one given access to the galactic scientific elite. He spent his days in vast, shimmering research labs, surrounded by alien scientists who alternately revered and resented him. He taught them the concept of the harmonic loop. He demonstrated how to fine-tune the sub-frequency emitters. He showed them how to build the void key devices. He worked with Professor Xylo, who proved to be an unexpected ally, interpreting his human intuition into Cathar logic, making it palatable for the other species. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Xylo looked at Alex with an expression Alex had never seen on him before, a subtle softness in his 4 eyes. "Human Thorne," he began, his voice unusually quiet, "I confess, I initially dismissed your species. Your history, it is fraught with internal conflict. Your science, though rapid, seemed less disciplined than ours. But your mind, it is a unique instrument. It is not bound by the same assumptions. You see the universe differently." He paused, then continued. "I have begun to question our own rigid adherence to established truths. Perhaps in our long history, we have missed other solutions, other paths, because we were too focused on the one we knew." Alex offered a rare, genuine smile. Maybe, sometimes, a fresh pair of eyes sees things the old ones can't. As the project advanced, Alex began to subtly introduce inefficiencies, not in the core solution, but in the controlled channels and council oversight mechanisms. He would accidentally leave data slates with critical information in public areas. He would mistakenly upload open-source versions of the sub-frequency algorithms to less secure networks. He would forget to log out of his terminals in common areas. He wasn't overtly defying the council. He was just being humanly disorganized and a little clever. Kale, always observing, always present, sometimes in the form of a small, decorative plant on a table, sometimes disguised as a cleaning drone, would subtly assist. Kale, with its natural ability to blend in and its deep understanding of data networks, became Alex's silent partner in this subtle rebellion. Information once released was impossible to fully recall. The void key designs once distributed would spread like wildfire. High Speaker Vril, though not directly aware of Alex's subtle subversions, felt the growing loss of control. News reports began to surface of species successfully replicating parts of the void static solution without official council approval. Small, independent groups were building their own void key devices. The old galactic order was crumbling, not with a bang, but with 1,000 quiet clicks of data transfers. Vril called Alex into his private chambers. The Xyler leader stood before a vast star map, his back to Alex. "Human thorn," he rumbled, his voice strained. "The stability I sought to preserve it is eroding. You have not just solved a scientific problem, you have unleashed a torrent." He turned, his obsidian eyes fixed on Alex. "You are a disruption. A catalyst." Alex stood tall. "I simply showed the galaxy what was possible. The torrent was always there, High Speaker. You just built walls to hold it back." Vril sighed, a deep, rumbling sound that seemed to shake the room. "Perhaps. But what comes next? What new chaos will your species unleash upon us?" Alex looked at the star map. So many unexplored regions now open. So many new possibilities. He thought of Maya back on Earth looking at those maps. He thought of all the human aspirations for exploration, for discovery, for connection. "Opportunity, High Speaker," Alex said, his voice firm. "And progress, that's what humanity offers." A strange moment of quiet understanding passed between them. Vril, the guardian of the old ways, and Alex, the harbinger of the new. The official Galactic Void Key project culminated in a grand public ceremony. The first fully operational, council-sanctioned Void Key device was activated at the Central Nexus Jump Gate, the Galactic Gateway. Millions of species watched on live feeds. Professor Xylo, visibly nervous but beaming with a strange Cathar pride, stood beside Alex. High Speaker Vril, his posture stiff, gave a lengthy speech about galactic unity and structured progress. But when it came time to activate the device, he motioned for Alex to do it. It was a concession, a symbolic acknowledgement of where the solution truly came from. Alex stepped forward, placing his hand on the activation console. He didn't just press a button. He felt the hum of the machine, the resonance of the universe. He thought of the knots on his dad's fishing boat. He thought of Maya's dreams. He pressed the activation button. A wave of shimmering energy flowed from the galactic gateway. Across the galaxy, jump gates, previously dormant and choked by the void static, flickered to life. On every news channel, the images poured in. Clear space, distant stars, ancient routes opening up. The galaxy erupted in cheers. A new era had begun. For Alex, it was bittersweet. He had achieved something monumental, but at the cost of his anonymity, his simple life. He was now a figure of galactic importance, forever tied to this one act. In the days and weeks that followed, the galaxy went through a profound transformation. New trade routes opened, old alliances shifted, and once-isolated species found themselves connected. Humanity, previously seen as a young, somewhat troublesome species, was now viewed with a mix of awe, curiosity, and continued apprehension. The static survivors raged, but their protests were drowned out by the overwhelming benefits for the majority. High Speaker Vril, despite his initial opposition, was credited by some with wisely overseeing the implementation of the solution. He had, begrudgingly, adapted. Professor Xylo, meanwhile, became Alex's greatest advocate, publishing papers on human intuition and nonlinear problem-solving, forever changing galactic academia. He even started a new department at the Galactic Theoretical Institute focused on unorthodox thought. Alex, still under council supervision, found his prison becoming less of a confinement and more of a gilded cage. He had access to anything he wanted, but the price was his freedom to truly return to Earth. He sometimes felt like a prized exhibit. Kale, always sensitive to his mood, would often just sit with him in silence, its tendrils gently touching his arm, offering silent comfort. Alex realized his arc wasn't about a single grand solution, but about the ongoing ripple effect. His actions had started a wave that couldn't be stopped. He began to apply his human intuition to other galactic problems, smaller ones at first. He helped optimize energy grid flows, simplified complex bureaucracy, even offered advice on agricultural yields for a species struggling with nutrient distribution. He found a new purpose, not just solving grand problems, but applying humanity's unique, often messy, common-sense approach to everyday galactic life. He was, in his own quiet way, continuing to transform the galaxy, one small human insight at a time. The fear of humanity still lingered in some corners, a low hum beneath the surface of galactic progress. But it was often overshadowed by a growing sense of wonder. What else could these humans do? What other unsolvable problems would they tackle next, simply by seeing them differently? Alex Thorne, the human who had broken the 1,000-year-old silence, was just getting started.